All right, board, we're going to get started. Well, wow, full house at the kindergarten center. Noticing these better-looking kindergarten students, participants. Oh, real ones too. Yeah. Well, thank you all for being here. Just a real quick announcement to you all. In the back is where we have some material that address your meetings and board protocol. If you have interest in commenting and speaking to the board, there's a floor back there. There's also a signage back there. And the other thing to keep in mind is that at all times, the room is a hot mic. So it is going to pick up your comments and it will be recording, and therefore,
I apologize in advance.
yeah. But for the rest of you, I just wanted you to just be aware that we're going to pick up comments and other sections. Okay, very good. All right, and with that, I will call to order this meeting, number 17. Mr. Lobach, would you please lead us in the pledge of allegiance?
Our kindergartners would like to lead us. That would be incredible.
Yeah.
All right, please go ahead.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great job, kindergartners.
Good job. All right. Mrs. Wolf, roll call, please.
Ms. King?
Here.
Ms. Lakeman? Mr. Millet?
Here.
Ms. Becker?
I'm here.
Mrs. Liddell?
Here.
Mr. Estes?
Here.
Dr. Martelli?
Here.
Mrs. Hill?
Here.
Mr. Lobach?
Here.
Dr. Bruno?
Here. Thank you very much. As you can see, we're sharing some technological adjustment. And let me also just say thank you to the tech team for getting us over here and getting it all set up. Really well done. We appreciate the effort. And you also, Mrs. Noel, for all the work that it took to bring this place. And this is the first time we have met. In this wonderful space. Thank you all for sharing. So, Dr. McHugh, you apparently have some celebrations, recognitions.
Yes, we certainly do. We have two celebrations and recognitions, starting with our kindergartners. So I'm going to introduce our principal of the kindergarten center, Mrs. Sarah Redford. Yes, and you brought some friends today.
I did. We worked on a little project.
Yes, sir.
We wanted to bring some kindergartners here today for the meeting because what better way to celebrate than have our kindergartners here. And before the meeting, we talked about our favorite parts of kindergarten. So my friends here tonight are going to share what their favorite part of kindergarten is. So I think we're all gonna walk up here. And I'm going to give them each the mic when it's their turn. Okay, our first is Fiona. Fiona, you want to tell everyone your favorite thing about kindergarten?
My name is Fiona and My favorite thing about kindergarten is playing outside and friends and lunch.
You'll notice a theme and some classic answers if you've ever asked a student what their favorite thing about school is. And next we have Ada.
My favorite thing is what?
What do you like that Mrs. Prendergast does every day?
What?
What do you like that Mrs. Prendergast does every day? What does she do a lot?
I don't know. Say fun.
Miss P sings songs all day long. Very impressive voice. Thank you, Ada. Miss Grace.
My favorite thing about kindergarten is outdoor recess. I love it so much because I get to spend time with my friends and I get to play with them even though they're in different classes. And it's me playing with my friend Emma because we were wearing the same dress, just hers was a little lighter, mine was a little darker. That was me that I was wearing my dress up when I had got it for my birthday. That's the sky, that's the grass, and that's the sky, and that's the sun. I added these objects so you knew that it was outside.
Thank you, Grace, because we do have a playground for inside recess too, so we love those details. And last but not least, Austin.
My favorite thing about kindergarten is Chromebooks because you get to type with them.
Thank you, Austin. So we just thought we'd share a little bit about our favorite parts of kindergarten with you, and thank you for having us.
Can you do that again? Yeah. Would you mind? Oh, yeah, the same picture you took, I think is working. Can you get Dr. to do that? Oh, yeah. I'll not check out your second
Oh, that's perfect. Great job.
There you go.
Okay, one more. Look right here. Look right here. Great job. Great job.
Thank you.
And I think that with you, our kindergartners are gonna go on. And go to bed.
Well, we're not telling them they have to go to bed, right?
Kindergarten teachers, though, the staff that's here, and Mrs. Rodriguez, you're not on the hook yet.
Okay.
We'll let you time the kids. So as Mrs. Rodriguez shepherds the kids out of here, I just wanted to say a couple words of appreciation for this beautiful center. For those of you that came early, hopefully you were able to walk through it. Our architect and construction company, Light and FQC, did a beautiful job building it, designing it, getting everything ready. Our in-house operations team of Eric Porter and Dave Scarmargo kept everybody on track. They delivered on time and under budget. And it was not easy. There were so many challenges and complications that came up all along the way, and they got us to the finish line. And then once we had the building built, we needed to figure out how full day kindergarten works. And we entrusted that to Sarah Rodriguez, who as principal, you spent January through pretty much March, the first day of school, doing all the logistics and the planning and the hiring and figuring out what this could look like. And you hired an amazing staff, many of which were in other District 41 schools, and pulled together a staff, some of whom are here today. And it's amazing that you created this from scratch. And continue probably to iterate and change, but the cohesiveness, the collaboration, the hard work and dedication. I couldn't believe walking in here after, I think it was the second week of school, and seeing already how you had the kids in the routines, knowing what they were doing. It was as if they had been here forever. So you've done a wonderful job. Board, thank you to all of you. You set the vision. Without you, this would have been possible. I feel like I'm leaving out other people. Sarah, who am I missing?
Well, I just always want to thank my staff because it's been incredible to have a team, some new teachers, but many from across the district, and it's an amazing feeling to put that together.
Sarah, can you have the staff that's here to just stand up and take a bow? Sure. You're doing nice.
Special to all be so focused on one thing, and that's kindergarten. So it's a really special feeling and awesome to have kids from all over in all of our elementary schools here, and I love it. So thank you.
There was another group that I am leaving out, and I don't know how, because we only talked about kindergarten every single week for a year. The team in the back there are having a team literally every week for a year, sometimes multiple times. Everybody playing their role, but also coming together and doing it as one. This place truly is a result of We Are D41, and I am so proud of it. And thank you all for coming and sharing that with us. As our kindergarten team may or may not stay, you're welcome to leave. I want to remind everybody that we're thinking about kindergarten for next year already. Pre-registration is open. It's open through the end of November. If you have an incoming kindergartner or know somebody who does, have them pre-register on the district website before the end of November. That helps us make decisions for registration, which will happen in January, February. Think about it as the first step of the process. A lot of people have, but we don't have it right yet. So pre-registration on the district website by the end of November. All right, so thank you, kindergarten team. You're welcome to stay if you would like to slip out. We have one final recognition tonight, and it's also important, an important one, and is the
Steph just walked out on this. Sarah, turn around.
So our Board of Education, for those of you in the audience and watching at home, November is School Board Appreciation Month, and Saturday, the 15th, was School Board Appreciation Day. If you have never served on a school board before, the amount of time and effort it takes, it's unreal. And these 7 ladies and gentlemen are volunteers, and the amount of time they are putting in for the benefit of our kids and our community, I couldn't be happier to have a supportive, engaged, thoughtful board who not only will, you're supportive, but also you ask hard questions and you come up with great ideas and advice. And I think you are a big part of the RD41 too. So thank you for all of your service during this month and always, and I am proud to serve you and this group. So thank you. Round of applause for
That's very kind. Very well. Okay. Presentation.
We've got a few. And the first one I'd like to invite Molly Victor up to the podium. And she and I are going to co-facilitate this presentation. And after the presentation, you'll see who's really running it and who's doing 1 or 2 slides. But we're covered, right? Sure. Co-facilitation. Co-facilitation. The preschool program review. The reason that we're doing this presentation in the first place is preschool is part of our strategic plan. We have 4 goals. Goal 3 is early learning facilities. And while the kindergarten center is the metric on the strategic plan, check. It's built, it's operational, it's fabulous. But there's an action step on there at the very bottom of that, of this of the goal that says evaluate the facility needs for preschool. So this was something that the board had tasked us with last year. We built the kindergarten center, but how are the facilities for preschool? And Molly, who oversees, you're the executive director for student services, but you do oversee the preschool. Our question wasn't, are the facilities right? It is, what preschool program do we want to have here in B41, and do the facilities support it? And with that in mind, I'll turn it over to you.
Before I get started, how many of you have a current preschool student or had a student in a preschool program, and you are here because one of our amazing preschool teachers told you to come? Yes. Oh.
Yeah, we're gonna just need to share one too. Everyone's gotta share one.
Nobody at home for a penny.
Great.
Now I know this.
Okay, we'll do that one more time. How many have a student currently in our preschool program or formerly in our preschool program, or maybe both? And you are here because one of our amazing preschool teachers told you to come? Yes. Well, thank you all for being here. Hopefully I'm not going to tell you anything you don't already know. And please correct me if I say anything wrong, because you guys live preschool much more than I do. So our District 41 preschool program is housed at Forest Glen Elementary School. It's a 5-day-a-week program. We have 2 sessions, a morning session and an afternoon session. We have 6 classrooms. One of those classrooms is a bilingual classroom. Spanish is the language that is spoken and taught in there. Every classroom has 1 teacher and 2 paraeducators. The cool thing about our preschool teachers is that they are triple licensed, which means that they are preschool teachers, they are special ed teachers, and they are also ESL teachers. So they are some of our most credentialed teachers in the district. Every classroom in our program, of the 15 to 18 students per class, has to have 80% of those students who meet the at-risk criteria. And each one of those classrooms holds about 4 spots for tuition students, which would be students who don't meet the at-risk criteria, with the exception of our bilingual classroom that is 100% at-risk. Every classroom is a blended classroom experience. Blended classroom means that it's a play-based, student-centered environment. So those of you who took a tour here at the Kindergarten Center, you saw some of the play-based activities. Imagine that times 10 in a preschool classroom. Our classrooms are mixed age and abilities. Students can start the day after, or the day that they turn 3 years old, and go all the way up until they're eligible for kindergarten. Our instruction in our classroom targets all areas of development. Our teachers are focusing on literacy, math, language, social, emotional development, just like they do at kindergarten first all the way through 8th grade. We're sharing with you a sample afternoon schedule. This happens to be Mrs. Clem's afternoon class schedule. Things to point out on there is that the preschool day allows for multiple shared play experiences. You see opportunities for time on the playground, time at centers, circle time. Those are all times where the students get to interact with each other and with the adults in their classrooms. Teachers introduce academic concepts, things like letters, sounds, numbers, through books, music, crafts, and other group activities. One of my favorite things about preschool is that they ask a question of the day and students all answer, and then they graph those answers and they talk about which answer has the most and which answer has the least. So things you wouldn't think are happening in preschool are happening every day. In order to enter preschool, all of our students participate in a preschool screening. The process starts with a parent request for a screening or through early intervention services. This year we hosted 7 different screening dates, or we will host 7 different screening dates. 3 in August, 1 in October, and then 3 more to come as the year goes on. Each screening is an individual screening for each student. They last about 20 minutes per student, sometimes a little longer if the student needs a little bit of time to warm up to the strangers. 2 staff members screen students together. And then students are able to start in the program as soon as 1 week after their screening, just as soon as all of the parents have finished the paperwork and gotten things all set up for them. I wanted to talk a little bit about enrollment. So here you have 3 full years of enrollment, and then the last bar is our current as of September. So our total enrollment, if we were completely full, is right around 170 students. The last time we had 170 students in the program was in May 2023. As of the beginning of November, we had 131 students enrolled. You can see at our 25-26 bar, there were 116 students enrolled. So between the end of September and now the beginning of November, we have grown by whatever that math is. We give priority to enrollment to our students who meet the at-risk criteria because we are a preschool for all program. That means we're a state-funded program intended to increase access to early learning programs for all students. So that's what we know about preschool, right? As Jeff talked about, this is one of our strategic goals. So in October, the Goal 3 subcommittee, a couple of our team members are here, met to discuss the preschool program challenges and strengths. This group is made up of preschool staff members, administrators, parents, and community partners. During that meeting, Jeff and I asked the team to brainstorm in mixed groups, so parents, educators, administrators, all mixed together, about the many things that District 41 Preschool does well. Here you see kind of the summary of it. That every group shared that we have wonderful staff, and they attribute that to being on the district pay scale. The fact that we are a fully staffed preschool with people who want to work with preschool children was definitely a celebration that came out. The team celebrated the opportunities that are made possible due to having the preschool in an elementary school. Things like allowing the preschool students to access the school library or allowing them to have a buddy classroom with older students. The teams also highlighted the screening process and the blended model, sharing that both of those things allow for all students to get their needs met in the classroom. After we finished celebrating the strengths, we talked about some of the program challenges. The number one challenge that every team highlighted, and I will tell you, highlighted, they wrote it in the biggest, darkest font on their post-it papers, was space. While we have 6 beautiful classrooms, the program does not currently have access to an indoor gross motor space, enough storage for what a bunch of preschoolers need and their teachers, or room to grow. So those were all things that were highlighted in the challenge. They also talked about having an administrative team and an office staff that are shared with the elementary school can be challenging at times, as it feels like sometimes there's not enough support to go around. And then the team finally identified that we need to increase community and parent knowledge of the program and suggested that we do more to reach families. So the committee gave us 4 suggestions for next steps in this goal area. They are suggesting that we answer the question, how do we build parent and community awareness of the program? Can we further develop our partnership with private preschool providers, such as the GECRC and the YMCA, as an example? They are also asking us to investigate what type of space is needed to accommodate the preschool program in District 41. And then finally, how can we provide more opportunities for family engagement outside of the school day? So finally, we have these 4 suggestions. What we would like to do as next steps with this committee and probably some other investigations is explore what makes District 41 Preschool great. We really want to figure out how do we measure and achieve great programming. Can we reach out to the schools that serve our students? Why did students choose another preschool instead of our District 41 preschool? We believe we need to understand that in order to grow into greatness. And then the other piece there is we want to understand how our current programming prepares our students for kindergarten. Are we giving them the right experience in their first school experience to help them be successful in kindergarten? And then secondly, we want to look at developing an outreach and communication plan. The team came up with the great idea that we should figure out how to brand the program. Preschool needs a name, preschool needs a mascot. So we'll explore what does that look like for our youngest learners. And then along those lines, we want to also increase communication through all the different channels we have. Social media, print, principal communications. We want to get the word out that District 41 has a preschool and we are great. So those are our next steps.
Questions from the board? Amy.
I noticed that it looked like over the past several years, less students were taking advantage, or that they're not taking advantage of it, or they're not, is there not interest? What kind of are we looking at with the numbers?
Yeah, so what you're looking at is the lighter blues are September enrollment, and then the darker blues are end of the year, right? So looking at kind of that cross-section of how did we grow throughout the year. Preschool is a different kind of program that we have rolling enrollment, right? So when you start kindergarten, you have to be 5 years old by September 1st. In preschool, when you turn 3, you can start, whether you turn 3 on September 1st or January 1st, it's any time during that school year. To answer your question of are people not coming, why aren't they choosing us?
Well, I guess my question is kind of like in 2022 to 2024, we saw it above the 150 mark, and it looks like we're going to be below that mark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like I said, that's one of our next steps, right? Exploring why are parents choosing other preschools instead of the District 41 preschool? Do they not know about it? Do the times not work for them? You know, there could be a variety of reasons. That's one of the things that we need to investigate you know, are we missing a population? Are we missing something in our programming? Yeah, thanks.
Anyone else? Molly, can I ask two things? So how do we make ourselves known? What are we currently doing to allow the community to understand that the program is here and here is very consistent? It looks like we definitely need to ramp that up and make that more robust. I'm just curious what measures are we currently doing?
Yeah, we have a lot of different measures. We have Megan here. Megan is our preschool parent liaison. A good chunk of Megan's job is helping parents know that preschool exists and how they get in the door. Megan connects with our community resources like the CASE Early Childhood Collaborative, the Glenbard Parents as Teachers. We participate in the Glen Ellen Public Library and the Glenside Public Library preschool fairs throughout the year. We advertise on our website. We have some social media posts that go out. But there's probably more than we can do, right? And so that's what we want to explore some more of that outreach.
And thank you. Thank you, Megan. You also mentioned that we are a pre-K for all school, which means there is a grant that we receive. And what is the district's thoughts about reapplying for the grant, right? You're smiling and I'm wondering.
I'm gonna let Jeff answer your question.
I'm gonna let Jeff answer that question.
Yeah, my co-presenter can answer that question.
Step up.
I've been carrying us.
I know, I'm sorry, I should do more.
So the Preschool for All grant is a grant that annually we should be filling out and applying for. But this year we're wondering, will there be a change? One of the questions I have that I hope to get through this engagement that we're doing is, if we get it, do we want to use it? And the reason I say that is there are restrictions. If you are Preschool for All, there are restrictions on the schedule. Even now, you mentioned 80% of our students here, 80% of the students need to qualify as at risk. So one of my questions here is, are there fewer at-risk students available to us in our communities? And if that's the case, we can only grow so much because 80% of those students need to be at risk. If we did not follow a preschool for all model, we would be able to expand as much as our resources require to commit to that. But I think it does go back to the what makes for a great preschool. We know we have three ingredients. We have the staff first and foremost. We have the administrators, between Molly, Sarah Tail, and correspondence doing a fantastic job. They're overseeing Scott, the principal of that building too. And we have wonderful parents who are supportive. So we've got those pieces. Do we want to follow the guidelines of preschool for all? What would our facilities need to look like differently? And really it comes down to what does greatness look like for our community, for preschool. Once we can answer that question, that will help us decide, I think, for the grant, for the space, and yeah, please.
Do you think you'll have an answer to that question before the deadline for filing the grant?
I believe, should I share what I'm thinking right now? I guess I could put this
I don't
out
know.
here,
Well,
right?
if it isn't fully baked, I don't mean it's just an important question. There's a lot of funding, but no.
Yeah, it's not fully baked. I think our initial thinking is we would apply for the grant still, not knowing what's going to happen. And then should we receive the grant, we want to balance fiscal responsibility to our community with what the community is looking for out of a preschool program. The staff is really going to help inform us with that too, because they know what the constraints are from the grant. But at the same time, it's a lot of money. Now, if we apply for the grant and we get only some of it or none of it, then that's answered the question for ourselves. If we do get a lot of money for the grant, then we just have to weigh the money we're getting versus what our preschool staff can do for those kids, and also enrollment, because that would allow us to expand should we want to do that. So it's going to be a combination of staff engagement, but also we're going to want to know what the community and the board defines greatness from a preschool program, and that would take place over the coming months. What did I miss?
You did a great job.
Okay.
Question is that if we're seeing a growth in the transition from EI, it's more to the, of our childhood for all, whatever the grant is.
Preschool for all.
Preschool for all. Does that does that somehow restrict our ability to serve the EI transitioning kids by the?
No, in fact, it's the opposite. It restricts our ability to serve tuition
So
students.
is the 20% just a bait, like the max, if you do max 20%?
Yeah, so we could have 100% preschool for all. We could have 100% at-risk children. We choose as a district to allow spaces for tuition students. So, you know, that's where Jeff is talking about as we explore this, we can decide, you know, kind of how we move forward.
Jeff, I don't know whether Jeff had something to clarify, but it's not. Okay, Julie, go ahead.
My question is, referring back to your comment about the various stipulations for preschool for all grant. If that somehow hinders and we have the space, which I don't know if that's actually a thing, could you get a grant for like for some classrooms and then function, what do we have, five or six?
We have 6.
6. If we, I don't know, this is make-believe.
Sure.
If we did like 4 preschool for all and 2 however we want to do it, is that like a thing that you can do through the grant? You can be like, we're applying for our 4 preschool classrooms and the other 2 are up for grabs or whatever, that's okay?
Yeah, so we could choose to run a preschool for all program and a fully tuition-funded program, right? Is that what your question is?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of what Jeff is talking about. As we explore this, we could, you know, look at different ways that are fiscally responsible for us to meet the needs of all of our students. First, we have to figure out what students we're missing and why they aren't coming to our program. That's our first step.
Okay? Oh,
Nope.
no, please, Amy.
All right, this isn't a question, it's more a shout out, because I know that we have quite a few preschool parents. If you have not signed your preschool child up for the Dolly Parton Imagination Library for your Kids Foundation, please do. It's absolutely wonderful. The kids really enjoy getting the books.
Yeah. Who doesn't want a free book every month, right?
I will say, like, you know, the blended program from our preschool has been in place in this district prior to the PFA. So I mean, I don't think that's a conversation that I can get rid of. But I mean, that was, the blended program had to come around because of the grant. That's something that was in place pre-grant. Obviously, given that one of the things that contributes to, you know, the positive part of that. I don't know. I do think that's a really important part of the program.
All right, Molly, thank you. We really appreciate you taking the time to provide the information.
I'm gonna leave this mic here for her.
Yes, let's do that. All right, we've got a second presentation on the strategic plan priority.
Which I'm co-facilitating again.
In a very robust way, you'll
Co-facilitating with Dr. Webster. Chair, you just.
Good night, please. Thank you for coming. It's good to see you all.
Thank you preschool families and preschool staff.
Brendan's birthday.
Oh. Brenda's birthday.
Motion to sing happy birthday. For Brenda. Happy birthday, Brenda. Okay. Well, we just talked goal 3. Now we're going to talk goal 1. And this is our metrics update, our monthly metrics update at goal 1, academic excellence, where I will co-facilitate with Dr. Chris Webster. And before I pass off to Chris, just as a reminder, academic excellence, there are 3 metrics on our strategic plan, under goal 1, in which we're measuring academic excellence. One of them is proficiency. That means achievement. Is this your part, the right one?
Wherever you leave off.
Okay.
Make sure it's.
I believe that Dr. Webster is going to talk about proficiency, so I'm simply going to say we have proficiency for all students. And by all students, the metric is for the Illinois Assessment of Readiness, IAR, given to students in grades 3 through 8. So it's all students in District 41 grades 3 through 8, proficiency and growth. And the third measure is the achievement gap metric for all 3rd through 8th graders who qualify as low income, and that is to address our achievement gap. Again, measured by the IAR, and there's a link in the presentation to the Illinois School Report Card, which came out on October 30th. If you haven't already, please go to the site. Lots of wonderful data, but the data on the report card will match what Dr. Webster's going to show you.
So before we get started, I did want to talk a little bit about some pretty significant changes that the Illinois State Board of Education made over the summer to the IAR, which is the Illinois Assessment of Readiness that Dr. McKee just spoke about, as well as ISA. We call it ISA, it's the Illinois Science Assessment. As you might recall, every year I get up here and we speak about how the cut scores for proficiency for children to succeed on the IAR has been the highest, among the highest, usually the top 3 in the nation. So a student perhaps that has this score in Illinois could have the exact same score in Colorado, and in Illinois they would not be meeting expectations, but in Colorado they could be exceeding because our bar was so high. Dr. Sanders, the state superintendent, who was also a former district superintendent, identified that also as an issue. So this summer, the Illinois State Board of Education made some changes to the cut scores to make them more in line with a typically performing student. So you'll see that both in ELA and math, the old score was higher than the current score. That resulted in, this year, our achievement, our proficiency scores being higher, even if a child had the same score as they did last year, because the bar was moved to be more right-sized. That's what Dr. Sanders calls it, right-sized. So ISB has been very specific about saying this is the new benchmark for the academic achievement piece. You can't really compare this year to previous years because the cut was different, right? So this is a new benchmark for the proficiency targets. Growth, however, has remained unchanged. Growth is measured differently, so growth has remained unchanged. The interesting thing is that when they looked at science, they also felt like the science scores were not rigorous enough. So they actually increased the science scores on ISA in 5th and 8th grade by about 13 points. So if you see an increase in some areas in the achievement in ELA and math, depending, it could be a result of the cut score change, but if you see a decrease in science, it could be because of the increase in the cut score. Again, you're really apples to apples this year, last year, previous years, you can't compare for academic achievement. So I just wanted to give that context to you. I think it's very important if you do choose to go look at the Illinois School Report Card, that you realize that this change was made. So I just spoke about how we can't compare this year to previous years. But this is why our measures still work. So we use the ECRA report for 2 of our 3 measures. And what the ECRA report does, and we'll talk in a few minutes, is it compares us to other districts in the state of Illinois. All of the districts are following the same cut scores. So that takes away the lack of comparability. So the metric that we established when we reevaluated last year continues to work because it continues to be an apples-to-apples measure. All districts are following the same standards. Our third goal for closing the achievement gap is a growth goal, and growth is unchanged. So that has not been impacted by the ISB cut scores. So we are still able to identify meaningful trends, and our data still is able to drive our instructional improvement, and which we're very fortunate. Many districts across the state that have used a different metric kind of have to go back to square one. We did not because of the metric that we use in our plan. And before I go any farther, I just wanted one quick clarification between the difference between proficiency and grade level. There's often a lot of confusion when the Illinois School Report Card comes out, when they see that the students are in the 60th percentile, or the 68th or the 70th percentile for ELA. It does not mean that only 60 or 70% of our kids are reading at grade level. It's not a grade level measure. What it's measuring is their proficiency on the IAR exam and meeting the different standards. It's not grade level. So it's the proficiency scores comparing our students to state goals.
not to grade level performance. So there is a difference. It's often misunderstood, understandably, both in the education field and outside of the education field. So the IAR is measuring proficiency towards state goals, not mastery of things like a child can grade level. Okay, so here we are. So here are the proficiency metrics. So what this measures is, if you see the 91st and 94th percentile, again, that is the report that we received from ECRA about the Illinois Assessment of Readiness. That compares us to all of the other schools in the state of Illinois and determines where we fall with our scores. We score exceedingly high. We're above the 90th percentile, which means that we're in the top 10% of the state, top 10 percentile of the state for our scores in both ELA and math. You'll see that they stayed the same from 23, 24 to 24, 25. And actually, especially for ELA, that's actually, we're happy about that piece. Oftentimes when you implement a new instructional resource, you see a dip the first year because the instructional resource assumes that kids have had it all of the 5 or 6 years of elementary school, specifically, or 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So there are gaps we need to go in and fill because the students weren't exposed to that specific resource prior. Our students that show the most growth with HMH with our new instructional resource last year are our primary school kids, which actually makes sense. So it's going to take a little bit before we start to see that. I imagine that next year we'll start to see that coming back up. We still have 2 more years left to meet this very high goal. The 95th percentile is a very lofty goal. I think we can do it. And we're almost there in math. But I think we're going to get there. We're close. We're close. This is the growth metric. So again, you'll see that we maintained our growth in ELA, which is actually a celebration. We didn't see any type of dip with implementation. And we grew. We actually grew a bit by a percentile point in math. So our growth in math, we are seeing movement there. Again, inching close. We're so close. In language arts, for ELA, we're so close to that 95th percentile goal, and actually with our math goal too. So we are, again, close to being in the top 5% of the entire state of Illinois. This is actually the one I'm the most excited about. This is our achievement gap metric. And so this looks at, using the IAR, the amount of growth our students from low-income households made from year to year on the assessment. Just as a refresher, the reason that we chose the low-income students for our achievement gap metric is because there's a high correlation with low income in many of our underrepresented groups. One of the things they have in common is poverty. And so by choosing this low-income group, we were able to really focus on a wide swath of our students that need us the most. And I'm very excited to say that we saw growth in both ELA and math for our students that have demonstrated an achievement gap. We're starting to make progress in closing that achievement gap. So even though we didn't see it broadly, overall, when we look at this one group of students that we're really focusing on, we are starting to see growth. Anything above the 50th percentile for growth is exciting, right? So if you're growing at the 50th percentile, that means if you were to look at a trend line, it's staying the same. So if you're underperforming at the 25th percentile, you're staying at the 25th percentile. As you go, every percentile point you go over the 50th percentile, the more quickly you're closing the gap and getting to more proficiency levels we would anticipate. So the fact that we are seeing our students in this achievement gap metric performing at the 53rd and 58th percentile is very exciting. And we would anticipate continuing to see that grow as well. So that's a celebration. Okay, so that's our data, and here are our next steps so that you know what our action plan is for this year. I see you looking at me. Did you want to take it or do you want me to do it?
I wasn't sure if they were all going to calculate or not.
It looks like I did it fancy and you have to press that thing. Sorry. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is obviously enhance our data-driven accountability, right? So we want to keep looking at the data to help us inform instruction. And one of the ways we're going to do that, thank you, is we are going to be meeting with building leadership to help them monitor school improvement plans. In fact, we actually, Mrs. Moak just sent out invitations over the course of the next month We'll be meeting with each of the building principals to kind of look and see how their school improvement plan is going, how their data looks. We'll do that at each benchmark 3 times a year so that we can continue to show that growth. The actual work happens at the buildings. They're the ones that are doing all the amazing work to show this growth for our students. So that's the first thing we're going to do. We're also continuing to deepen our core instructional frameworks. We are really focusing on small group and differentiated instruction. We really brought that forward as a key initiative last year, and I do strongly believe that that had a big impact on our students from low-income households. We are going to continue that work, and that is for all students. It is not just for students that aren't quite there yet. We're also working on kids that may already know it and need an extension as well. And that will also happen for our, we're also continuing to focus, Molly and I are working very hard on continuing to focus on the MTSS systems of support. We have great processes in place. She and I are working very hard this year on making sure that we have research-based interventions to make sure that our teachers have the toolkit they need to provide those interventions. And also, if you were at the committee of the whole, you will probably remember we talked about something called TPAC briefly. So we are looking at ways to integrate technology intentionally. There's a lot of conversation right now about the power or the danger of technology in education. So we are working very hard at identifying ways that we can do that intentionally. The TPAC framework is a framework that's been around for a very long time. It is like the gold standard. And this is something that we're going to be looking at. Faisal and I are working on this year together. We are tag teaming this to really bring this framework for our PLCs to our teachers so they have a really clearly identifiable way to determine what technology, if technology, when technology, based on the content and their instructional practices. So lots going on. Dr. McHugh, I'll turn it to you.
Any questions?
Question, Bill, thoughts? Chris, first of all, thank you. And whenever you take the time to define terms, right, you can never do that enough and explain the difference. And it's important to recognize what the core assessment is showing and what it isn't. But from a more narrative perspective, parents who would, and to board members, frankly, who would want to know, are we at grade level? And we can't really use IAR, it's not exactly telling us that. What is telling us that? So should that be the focus, or should we just grow it? You tell me, but assuming that is something you want.
Sure. So there's different ways to measure that. So if a parent is looking for specific information about a reading level, for example, or a math level, that would be something more organic that would come through our common assessments and our built-in instructional assessments. Their teachers would have that. We have running records. There are other assessments that we do, the assessments for learning, as opposed to the assessments of learning, right? So the assessments for learning would be the ones that happen in the classroom throughout the year, and the classroom teacher would have that information based on his or her observational data or the different assessments that we have built into either our core resources or our common assessment framework that measure learning.
Well, thank you for that. And I raise it because this is obviously district-wide data. These are metrics that the state is holding school districts accountable to, but it's not the only measure of how well the student is doing. And getting inside that classroom and getting inside the PLCs and talking, there's so much happening there.
Oh, absolutely.
That we should sort of redirect and assure parents that there's a lot more about your individual child is doing it. Different grade up by getting inside that classroom.
Absolutely. We have benchmark assessments that we do 3 times a year that are more standardized assessments, but we also have, again, common assessments that are created through PLC that are part of our instructional resources, observational, exit tickets. We have all sorts of meaningful in-the-moment data that informs our instruction. Again, this is really the assessment of learning, like how did we do, right? And then there are those other assessments, like I said, are for learning. Where the kids need, where are we at, what's their level? Is what we're doing working, like for MTSS, the constant progress monitoring is what we're working on with these particular students actually making a difference, if not, what do we need to do differently? All of that happens every day, all the time in the classroom.
But it's good not to lose track of.
Oh, absolutely.
This isn't the only data that the district has, where it's going to have access to. Thank you.
And to go back to your earlier point, if I can give a shout out to the subcommittee, the Strategic Goal 1 subcommittee that Dr. McHugh and I met with, was that September, October? Seems like yesterday, but we're already almost to, yeah. A big thank you to them. Dr. Martelli was there as well. We asked for feedback on what would be the most useful for parents in the community to know in this board meeting and the board. I did a similar presentation for them. It was bigger and broader. And they really helped us hone, like, this is what we want to know. As parents, as community members, this is what you should be telling people and talking to people about. This is what's important. So to your point about proficiency and growth and that type of thing. Several of the slides that I used tonight, I used by direct recommendation from the committee that Dr. Martelli, Dr. McKean and I met with in October to help make sure, this can get very technical, to make sure that the board and our parents were actually getting information that was useful. We asked parents was useful. So a shout out to them and thank you to them for
They
doing this.
didn't cut all my slides.
Good job, committee.
Well, thank you, first of all, Shada, and thanks to Dr. Martelli. It's good to know that board members make a positive contribution. I'm assuming, because, I don't know, you might have got one.
No, he was very involved, actually.
That's good to know.
Because, yeah.
Thank you. Okay. All right, then we'll go to public participation. Members of the public who wish to address the board should begin to move through one. Mrs. Moak, the board recording secretary. Speakers are asked to maintain respectful form and limit their comments to 3 minutes or less. By the way, we're now using the electronic scoreboard. So you probably won't be looking at it, but in about 30 seconds, I'll just politely ask you to wrap it up. Please note that all meetings, including public comment, are live streamed and they are recorded and they become part of the official record. Mrs. Moak, is there anyone wishing to make public comments?
Andrew McGady, Grady.
Andrew, please. Good to see you again.
Okay, good evening, Superintendent, good evening, members of the board. My name is Andrew McGady. I'm a proud parent of a kindergarten student here at the Kindergarten Center. I'm here tonight to raise a safety concern that affects our middle students and their families every day at school. I'm fortunate to live close enough to the Kindergarten Center that my wife and I are able to walk our son to school every day. But that walk has shown me just how unsafe the area on Geneva and Bloomingdale Road can be during drop-off and pickup. Vehicles regularly speed through the school zone, not just cars, but trucks, school buses, construction and semi-trucks, and even police vehicles, often going twice the posted 20-mile-an-hour speed limit zone, and that is while students and parents are present. To understand the scope of this issue, I bought a radar gun, and I began tracking the speeds during my short 10-minute walk to and from school. Since the start of recording, there hasn't been a single day that I haven't clocked multiple vehicles traveling at more than double the speed limit in the school zone. And part of the problem is that there is zero enforcement from the Glen Ellyn Police Department, and that the school zone flashing lights are out of sync for when the students are actually walking. They don't turn on until 8 a.m., and that is after many of the Hadley Junior High students and the Kindergarten Center students have already crossed Geneva Road. And they do not activate again until 3:30 p.m., and that's 15 minutes after kindergarten dismissal. And that's when most of the kindergarten students are already almost home. Under Illinois law, the school zone speed limit of 20 miles an hour applies from 6:30 to 4 p.m., and that's when children are present. I'm not suggesting that lights are on that entire time, but they should at a minimum reflect the student activity, and right now that simply does not happen. I've spoken with Principal Sarah Rodriguez, who's been very receptive, so I'd like to thank her for that. And we both agree that both the placement and the timing of the signs should be reviewed quickly, and especially with the winter conditions coming. However, my experience with the Glen Ellyn Police Department has been a bit frustrating. I was told that we can't have, we can't be thank you. We can't be at every school every day. There will be speeders no matter what. And I understand that they forwarded my email to D41, but it felt a little less like problem solving and more like excuse making. I reached out to the department, the DuPage County Department of Transportation, since they manage the road signs. But lasting change and actual change is going to take a coalition between the school district, the village, and law enforcement. I thank you guys for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Andy Fallman?
Welcome, Andy.
Thank you again.
Yes.
Thank you guys. I appreciate the time. I'm just here to tell you guys a little bit of a story, and I'm actually echo a lot of what Andrew said today. Him and I are neighbors. A few seconds. A few seconds is all it took for me to nearly lose my son. My name is Andy Fallman. I have a son, Griffin, and he attends Churchill here. He's a second grader. Since he started school, I've had the privilege of walking him to school in the morning and picking him up in the afternoon. I love doing it. It's great. And a lot of days they tend to blend together, but that day, it always sticks out to me. It was the first week of school. He was really eager to get to Churchill, had little buddies and stuff like that. We were standing at the crosswalk that Andrew actually mentioned, the intersection of Bloomingdale and Geneva. It's actually, we crossed it to get to this meeting. We got the walk signal, we started to cross. We both saw the school bus that was stopped in the southern lane of traffic moving westbound. What we couldn't see was the sedan that was rushing through the next lane over. I mean, that sedan had never slowed down. A lot of them don't. And it made a right turn against red. I remember it vividly. And really, it was just a few seconds that all it really would have taken for either me to lose my son, or for my son to lose his father. So this isn't just a question about kids, it's everybody that crosses there. But yeah, it was close. It was just way too close. And so my question is like, how many close calls need to happen before we collectively act? I'm here today just to really raise awareness about the issue. And just really just ask the question, what will it take to prevent the death of a child? I'm interested in a crossing guard, a sign that reads no turn on red, a few cement pylons to prevent a car from hitting anyone, children, anybody for that matter. Should a car lose control, Andrew brought up the fact that the winter is coming. And they're making a lot of folks make that left turn from Bloomingdale onto Geneva. We actually had an accident there during the last school year. It wasn't during the day, but you could tell there was a lot of debris there. It's clear that that is an issue. So I'm just asking you guys, let's consider what's at stake and just ask ourselves, what can we be doing? And all it really takes is a few seconds to lose someone that we love and really just change our lives forever. So that's really what I have for you guys today. Like Andrew, I've reached out to several different folks. PTA, I've spoken with the Glen Ellyn Police Department, I've spoken with the Wheaton Police Department, I reached out to the Department of Transportation and their committee. I'm organizing a meeting there. I'd love to have somebody from the school board join. Because it's an issue that it's safety. It's something for everybody. So that's the reason I came here today. I do appreciate you guys' time. I know I'm up. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Andy.
Adam Tate?
Oh, it works, sorry. Okay, so at the risk of sounding like a broken record, I'm also here to talk about student safety on Geneva and Bloomingdale. So yeah, Adam Tate, a father of three, two of which are currently Churchill students. I'd like to second both Andy and Andrew's comments. I'm also one of their neighbors, but we've been at Churchill for 5 years now, and for 5 years we've been raising concerns to previous school administrations, to the Glen Ellyn Police Department, the DuPage County Transportation Board, and essentially we've just been consistently told that there's not much we can do. And You know, when we've asked about the crossing guards in the past, we've been told that, well, it's actually too dangerous to have crossing guards there. So you just need to walk down to Kenilworth. And for those of you who have spent any time walking on Geneva, I can guarantee you crossing at Bloomingdale is not, is certainly less dangerous than trying to walk down Geneva even further. Geneva is a raceway. Consistently, as Andrew pointed out, people are speeding daily during school hours. So, you know, I think what I'm here also to do is just to ask kind of two things to the board. First, let's figure out a plan on how we can get a crossing guard at the Bloomingdale intersection. I'm convinced that we can do it safely and cost effectively. And then also help be an advocate of ours to the Glen Ellyn Police Department. We need to change behavior of drivers on Geneva, and the way that's going to happen is increasing the number of traffic stops. For 5 years, I have yet to see a single traffic stop happen during school hours when children are present. So this is something that seems to be pretty straightforward, seems to be something that's achievable for us to do, and I'd ask for you guys' support. So again, thank you guys for your time. Hopefully I didn't sound too much of a broken record, but looking forward to figuring out how we can move forward here.
Thank you. Okay, very good. Okay. All right, we will then go to, we'll go to reports, and our superintendent will read us off.
Okay. We'll keep this one short and sweet. Instructional technology, hiring, and the happy schedule. For those of us who were there at the Committee of the Whole meeting on November 3rd, instructional technology was the topic. If you weren't there, you can go on the website, you can watch some of the video from that, and the presentation is up. And really, there were three main themes that came out of the surveys that were submitted by students, parents, and staff. Number one is bringing home Chromebooks, the appropriate timing for bringing home Chromebooks. How we're using devices at school for teaching and learning. And when we say devices, we mean instructional technology is Chromebooks, anything in the classroom. These are not personal devices. These are school-issued devices in the classroom. And then the third theme that came out was consistency of use, classroom to classroom, grade to grade, school to school, across the district. And we had about 45 people at the Committee of the Whole meeting, and we talked about these issues, we looked at the data. And we saw that there was some low-hanging fruit that we have, and we saw that there are some bigger issues to tackle. All of them we're going to now go to the staff needs. Kindergarten Chromebooks was one of the biggest topics of conversation. At the full-day kindergarten center, we already have charging ports built in, so the kindergartners don't need to bring their Chromebooks. Whereas our 3 half-day sections and our dual sections still bring them home. So that is going to be a quicker area. We're going to be able to move on for that. But that begs the question, is it just kindergarten? K2 across staff, students, and families were suggesting we don't bring Chromebooks home for those grades. And there was mixed reviews about grades 3 through 5. So the staff voice, there's parent-teacher conferences that evening. We didn't have as many staff members there as we wanted to. We'll be bringing that to staff next to talk to them about where we go. And we're already looking at solutions, charging solutions, and things we might do. And thirdly, as you heard Dr. Webster talk about, the TPAT framework is a framework that both Dr. Webster and Mr. Bacon are talking about kicking off at the beginning of the year. We pressed pause on that so that you can get into this engagement. But working with staff on a framework of what is it appropriate to use technology in the classroom? Where is the return on investment versus what's too much screen time? Because staff, students, and families alike want more balance and meaningful use of time. There may be some people on both fringes who say we want no technology whatsoever or everything on tech. We're not going either of those places, but where in the middle do we want to be? And there were a lot of good questions raised, such as technology at recess or technology for rewards. Where do we stand on that? Is that too much screen time for little return on investment? So those are all conversations we're going to be having with staff, and then we will continue to bring that back to the community. I do think we're going to see some meaningful changes this year, but this will be ongoing even into next year. As so much of our instruction is embedded in technology, what we need to sort through with staff is what is meaningful and what are some of the things that we don't really need technology to. So more to come. Speaking of Dr. Webster, she will be retiring at the end of the year. And while we are finished, we sad to see her go. We need to find another assistant for teaching, learning, and accountability. So we are in the midst of that hiring cycle. We anticipate having a candidate to recommend to you at the December board meeting. And then Mr. Dively, the Hadley Junior High principal, retiring after, I believe, 12 years of service. Does that sound right? We anticipate with that posting just went out, so we're looking for candidates, and we'll begin that hiring process coming up shortly. Dr. David Bruno is heading both of those searches for that, and we are going to get hopefully 2 terrific candidates to bring to you in December and January for recommendations in those searches. And lastly, if you recall last year, Dr. David Bruno and Dr. Webster worked with elementary staff on the elementary schedule to see how can we make the schedule even better for kids. And working with staff, came some recommendations. Went so well, we thought let's do it in Denver. So we are convening a committee again, Dr. Bruno and Dr. Webster working with Hadley staff and administration on the Hadley schedule, what seems to be working and what are some pain points. And we expect to be bringing more information back to you, possibly even at the December board meeting, January board meeting, after we have some conversations as we get ready for next year. So we're in the early stages.
Okay. Question now. Who's my coach? The Hadley schedule. Hadley schedule. Given the student committees that you have, and our student board, are those going to be part of that conversation? We'll be interested to hear student voice and hear what comments, critiques, thoughts they may have on that schedule.
Dr. David Bruno just can't wait to weigh in on this.
I was going to grab a mic. You want me to throw it?
It's not throw it. It's another way.
Fair enough, Mike. You never know.
Thank you.
So that's a great question. What we did, Chris and I, Dr. Webster and I, we put surveys out to all parents in 6th, 7th, 8th grade. We put all surveys out to all 6th, 7th, 8th grade students, a survey to them, and then we also put out to the staff. So we took those 3 voices that went out about 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, and we got 500-600 responses from our students, and then we're taking all that and then analyzing it and having discussions with the committee on what we learned.
I don't see that email from Steve.
Yeah.
Thank you. Amy, please.
I don't mean to put our student board members on the spot, but if you saw the questionnaire and answered it, I was just curious what your perspective is. Like, could you do one thing that, oh man, I wish this were better?
Do I have to hand them the mic too?
I was gonna let them decline if they wanted.
Oh, no, they
I feel like the biggest thing is just the single period classes, like language classes and exploratory and even the music program. I feel like there's a lot of people who dislike the language classes and really like the music courses and the exploratories, and they wish that they could do both music and exploratories. And I feel like that's the biggest thing that I've heard mostly.
I would just try to say like passing periods, because I have some classes that are all across the school, and also some classes that are right next to each other. So it's really hard to go do that.
The student voices will be heard on this. They already have been on the committee loud and clear. This is not just an adult committee. We're listening for 2 weeks.
Great. Thank you. All right. Yeah. Dan, let's go to the board reports. Board, any reports? Yes, Keith?
Yeah, just a couple of things. The calendar committee has met twice in preparation to put together the 26-27 school year calendar. Very complex process. I've learned a ton. But we are going to have a tentative plan, I think, is to have a draft ready to review at the December meeting and then vote on the calendar at the January meeting. I attended the IASB DuPage Division meeting with Jeff and Ted in late October. It was fantastic, especially as a new board member. There was a speaker, Jim Burgett, who wrote a book called The Art of School Boarding. We got a copy, so if anybody wants to borrow it. It was really, I skimmed it so far, but really engaging speaker. We also, D41 won a raffle, so we won a free school board training similar to what we did over the summer in July. And you know, when they call out D41, you're like, yay! So that was exciting. I attended a PEP committee meeting. There's a new member of the PEP committee. He's an independent contractor actually, but super excited about getting PEP out into the community and building awareness. And he's going to be reaching out to Erica, if you haven't already, just to talk about what we've been doing and how to get more engaged. The Ben Franklin PTA meeting, that PTA is on it. They had someone from every event that's happening at Ben Franklin this year, went through it all super efficient. It was such, I don't know, it's very interesting to watch. And then I also just wanted to send shout outs. I attended the Hadley Concert, which was the 7th and 8th grade band and orchestra students. Fantastic. It was one of the coolest school concerts I've ever gone to. And then also at Hadley, they did their Veterans Day Assembly last week, which again, they had the 7th grade band this time. And then a guest speaker who was a former teacher at Hadley, I think for 30 years or something. But it was so interesting. So really cool events happening.
If I could note, they probably too modest, but we're in the investment program with the Sunday band and having, your college, there's also a lot of veterans. It's nice to see them again and have them take some lives.
Yeah, no, it was great. My dad, he is a former Air Force, and we had always attended the Veterans Day assemblies at Lincoln, and so we weren't really sure, the kids are getting older, what's it going to be like, and having them was fantastic. So it was really great. Best day ever for him. So thank you.
Chris, you look?
Yeah, Ted and I, and if there's anything we want to share, Ted, feel free, but we participated in a half-day workshop with the policy committee. So Jeff, Nancy, Ted, and I, and the Illinois Association of School Board representative fine-tuned much of our policy work, and we'll be bringing some information back in December, correct?
Yes. Yeah. I mentioned it last time that we did about half of the policy manual, the other half instead. No, actually we did that. We did have some other day. This was going over all of that work with the IASB representative. And I want to make a big shout out to Simone and the cabinet. It's, we got a gold star from the representative in terms of how prepared we were and how carefully we did scrub all of the details. She said several times, nobody comes to me with much detail in terms of going over this stuff. So that was kind of nice to know that, yeah, our work is being recognized even with in the back room somewhere. So the next step is we will get the draft of all of the stuff that we've been touching in preparation for actually pushing it out. Hoping that we can have that in our hands before we move on it. I can draw us some kind of summary. Here's the stuff that changed, and it wasn't drastic. Here and there, we were behind on some updates, and as I mentioned last time, our technology section 9, issued to us, we were kind of ahead of the curve in terms of coming up with our technology policies, and now they've been incorporated into different areas that certainly have standardized policy.
Yeah, real quick. I also attended the concert, and I just want to give a shout out to Paul Marchese, the bar director at happening. And it's funny because it's easy to get a chuckle, but he came out as a disco ball with his bald head stickered with disco ball things, what you may call them.
Like attached to his head.
Like it's literally attached to it, but the point being, what the shout out is for is that if you want to get your kids engaged and just make your class a fun experience, look at what Palmer Casey does in his classes. It's just a shout out for that. You can just see through the choir director how much fun and joy that of a choir department has.
Nice. So, Susan, how about over here?
I attended the Hadley PTA meeting. They had their fun run, which was successful, and they were excited that even more students actually signed up the day of. And they also said, if you have not renewed your PTA membership for Hadley yet, please do that. They're going to lock down their directory if you're not a member. So please renew.
So a few weeks ago, Q hosted me on a tour of Churchill, and I appreciate that. And I got to peek in here at the Kindergarten Center as well. It's fun because it's in the middle of the day and there's kids here, right? And to actually see, well, this is what we're doing, this is what our work does. And to see all of those happy, engaged, smiling kids, I mean, it's really nice. So thanks for that opportunity. Already mentioned the policy meeting, already mentioned the IASB vision meeting. I attended the Churchill drama presentation. Last
weekend before.
This week, he would know because he's there.
I mentioned to Dr. McHugh that I was going earlier in the afternoon. He said, oh, maybe I'll do that, maybe I'll change. And so I walk in, I had forgotten. And I picked this seat back here where nobody would be sitting, and there's some guy sitting right next to the spot I picked that I was in. But that was really fun to see. I really appreciate all the efforts that the parents put into the shows on the kids. So it's really enjoyable. And then I attended the Abraham Lincoln PTA meeting last week, and we had a bit of a discussion follow on to technology discussion. I appreciate having a little bit extra talking about that.
Thank you. Julie?
I just wanted to tell you guys that I did, as promised, submit written testimony to ISBE. So I just wanted to give you a couple highlights. It's regarding funding public schools. Sorry, the highlights are those 4 things. Okay, so if we continue to fund the program, the law originally said this, a minimum of $350 million, new dollars every year for public school funding. And so Bob sent me some information from an organization he's been involved with, and from that I learned that if we do $300 million new dollars per year, it will take 14 years for every district in the state to be fully funded. If we do 500 every year, that will happen in 6 years instead of 14. And what did I want to say? Right now there are still 431 districts serving 76,000 students who are still less than 70% funded, and their idea of fully funded is 90%. So that's a whole bunch of districts in this one state and a whole bunch of kids who still do not have fully funded schools. So I think that really underlines the importance of this issue. And the second thing was about mandated categoricals, which are like, I have a little list here, hold on. There is special education private tuition, special education transportation, regular and vocational transportation, free breakfast and lunch programs. Those are all included in that, and those were flat funded for fiscal year 2026. And I think we're all very familiar with the fact that nothing has gotten cheaper, in fact, everything has gotten more expensive, so flat funding is really kind of a, and, you know, when it comes down to it. So we were asking for $450 million for EDF and $100 million for mandated categories. I can give you this letter, you might have already, but I think those are the highlights. So I just wanted to let you know that I did in fact do it, and it's in front of me. If you guys have questions, okay.
Thank you. It's important to give testimony to the State Board of Education. You guys be able to shape the budget request and policy positions to the general. So good for you to put that time. Well, boy, thank you, everybody. Very good. All right. Next, then, go to our students. Thank you.
So 8th grade went last Tuesday on Veterans Day to 8th grade at Denver West. And yeah, also on Halloween, there was a concert and 8th grade had a birthday.
Give me a second. Got 5 minutes. Okay, so the 6th graders are having an easier time adjusting to Hadley than 6th graders in the past. And that's all thanks to the 5th grade teachers. Their biggest problem is charging their Chromebooks every night, which I feel like that's a problem across like almost every grade level. And that's about it for 6th grade. And then since Sophia wasn't able to make it here, she asked me to do her report for her. So last month, all the 7th graders went to the Brookfield Zoo as part of their ecology unit. And the weather was great, and there were some cool new exhibits there. On Halloween, there was a great SIP day where they had raffles and quarter awards where quarterly teachers will award students for their good behavior. And the concert was also very fun.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Very good. All right. And we will now move into the discussion portion of our agenda. We have 4 items up, and the Eric, yes, you have the resolution to regulate expense reimbursement. That's the first item.
Okay.
That's what it says here. Well, this is local.
All right, yeah, so, as you guys referenced earlier, we are going through a process of updating our board policy documents, and in doing so, we identified a report that is required to come to the board. It's connected entirely to expense reimbursements for staff members. So what this does is it's a requirement for the board to take action to set a limit. So in the past, we've had a limit based on, for instance, a maximum amount a staff member can spend for airfare or for a hotel at a conference. Moving forward, that resolution has kind of changed a little bit to where now it addresses what's the maximum amount that we would approve as a reimbursement for such expenses. It's not so much limiting each individual item, it's the maximum amount that will be reimbursed. So what we're presenting to you tonight is a resolution that the board will take action on later to set that amount at $1,000. An important note though, so we very rarely in this district do reimbursements for personal expenses out of pocket. Our offices and buildings are set up so that if a staff member is going to a conference, we're going to pay for that conference with a district credit card or with a district check. So it's very rare that somebody comes out of pocket with a credit card to pay for expenses. So I mentioned that just to highlight the fact that reimbursements are very rare in this district. It shouldn't apply very frequently, but again, this is a board policy requirement. Questions?
Okay. School maintenance project grant.
Okay, this is an annual grant that we applied for. It does not require board action. What it requires is the board just to give a thumbs up that basically saying, yeah, we approve the district applying for this grant. To describe what the grant is used for, it's called the School Maintenance Project Grant. It is a reimbursement grant. So if you do a qualifying project in any of your facilities during the year and you apply for this grant and you are approved, you'll get up to $50,000 as a matching grant. So for the summer of 2026, we have a project scheduled at Forest Glen that does qualify. It is an HVAC upgrade project of about $1.5 million. So again, we have spent far more than $50,000 to get a matching grant from the state. So tonight is just a requirement that we present it to the board and just kind of get a consensus that you approve for us to apply for this grant.
Board, we consented? Yes, thumbs up?
Thumbs up.
No board.
Excellent.
And then, I think Dr. McHugh, again, this robust co-presenting, has given us the 25-26 fiscal year levy.
Right, so this next topic is a riveting topic. Obviously, we've been using that word for the last couple months, but tonight is just an annual process where we do bring to the board an estimated 2025 tax levy. So this is a requirement under school code that is presented to the board, placed on display for a minimum of 20 days, before it is ultimately will be brought back to the board in December for an action request. That action has to take place in December and it needs to be filed. When I say it, the tax levy needs to be filed with the DuPage County clerk by the last Tuesday in December. Having said that, what I'd like to do tonight is just go through the levy calculation. If you can see that screen, good for you, I can't see it, but I have it up on my laptop over here. So we're gonna just kind of work down this together, and I can talk through the different steps and process involved in calculating the levy estimate. So similar to previous years, the first thing you do is you really look at last year's extended levy. So on the screen it will show the 2024 actual levy extended. That's listed on the screen, and then to that you're going to add an increment. The increment is what's called the CPI, the Consumer Price Index for 2024. So that number was 2.9%. So you can see in this calculation towards the bottom of that screen up there, it's taking last year's extension of $57,730,559 and multiplying that by 1.029 to give you that 2.9% CPI increment. Towards the right of the screen, it'll show you what I call the new tax dollars. So the new tax dollars attributable to the CPI increase are approximately $1.6 million. So that's the first step of the levy. The second step, if you scroll down just a little bit, let's go ahead and stop there. So the second step is you need to estimate the new property growth within our boundaries during the calendar year. So this is a step that takes a little bit of guesswork because as we sit here tonight, we don't know what the new growth was for our taxing community this year. What we've typically done is we look back at historical new growth in the district, and that's what's shown up on the screen. You can see anywhere from $6 to $13 million has kind of been our range over the last 11 years. So as you see right on the middle of that screen, or towards the bottom, I have entered an amount of $20 million as an estimate, and that is obviously higher than we expected to be, and there's a very good reason for that. Since this is a guess, if we were to guess below the actual new property growth, we would leave taxes on the table, if you will. So basically, we don't guess a number here that's at least as large as what our new property growth ultimately turns out to be, with leaving taxing capacity on the table. However, by putting $20 million in there, I expect that to be greater than the actual number, and then the DuPage County clerk will automatically lower this number down to the maximum. So in no circumstance will we get a levy that's above what school code permits. I'm going to pause and ask if there's any questions yet. Good, not seeing any. So if we can scroll down a little more. There's a question.
I just wanted to make sure I'm understanding correctly, since this is my first levy at Ford. It's my understanding that you cannot get more than inflation. CPI is based on inflation, right? So we can't get more money than inflation was or actual tax revenue from new property. Is that correct?
Mostly, let me explain it. So, great question. So, the way the school code works is it's governed by a law called PTEL, Property Tax Extension Limitation Law. So that law went into place to limit a school district's ability to increase their tax levy year to year by no more than the CPI percentage plus the taxes on new property growth. So for instance, what we just walked through is a calculation where we're using the CPI factor of 2.9%. That's the largest number we can use. If we decided to use 5% there, the clerk would say, no, you can't do that, you're not eligible for that. They automatically lower us down to the CPI amount. The second part is that new growth estimate. So that's where it's a little bit tricky. We don't know what our new growth is. Talk to the assessors, they won't release that until after our tax levy is due to be turned in. So that's why we have to estimate it. So I estimate high, knowing full well that the clerk will look at our levy and say, actually, your new growth was X, which is less than 20 million, and they're gonna bring us down to that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Well, and there is one more cap, right? Because there's also the 5% overall.
Well, we're gonna get to that next, yeah. Yeah, so.
I'm jumping ahead, I'll
It's because it's riveting, you're excited to hear about this, I can tell. If we could scroll down just a little farther down, we'll go to the next. There you go. So what we do now, and Ted alluded to this, is you add together, you take last year's extension, you add the CPI increment of 2.9%, you add what we're estimating for new property growth to be, which you can see at the top of the screen there is approximately $636. That would be if we received an actual new property growth of $20 million. So again, keep in mind that number is higher than it actually will end up being. So at the very bottom of the spreadsheet, you can see where I'm going to what I labeled there, the estimated tax revenue for 2025 calculation. And what you're doing is you're looking at last year, comparing to what we've just calculated on this worksheet, and you're calculating a percent increase year over year. So at the bottom of this, it says a truth in taxation test shows that this increase would be a 4.00% increase over last year. So what the school code says, or PTEL says, is if that increase is greater than 5%, you're required to have a truth in taxation hearing before you adopt your levy. That would happen in December. In District 41, we do that every year regardless of what this percentage is. It's an opportunity for the community to come and comment on our levy ask, even though we're not technically required to do so because our number is less than 5%. Is that what you're referring to, Ted?
Well, there's that, plus you can't get more than 5%.
Well, oh yeah, okay, yeah, so to step back for a second, what Ted's referring to is PTEL says you're eligible for the lesser of CPI or 5%. A couple of years ago when CPI was north of 5%, it was 6.5%, I want to say in 2022, we were automatically limited to a 5% increment on last year's extension. Good clarification. Two different 5% rules, yeah. So as you can see, as written, the year-over-year increase would be 4%. Again, that's considering a $20 million new property growth. If you factor in the reality of it probably being closer to about an $8 to $9 million new property growth for our district, that brings that number down to around 3.3 to 3.4% year-over-year increase. So that's the levy calculation. Happy to answer any questions.
So it looks like, I'll just move on that just a little bit. I don't know.
Over there.
Could you go up just a little bit? Yep, okay, that's good, thank you. So in the 2024 tax rate, for the 2025 bill, it has 3.18. And then below, there's a 4%. I'm a little confused how 3.18 got to 4%. And I think I'm reading it wrong, but could you help me understand?
Absolutely, yeah. So what you're looking at is in, I think I've labeled it step 4 to estimate the value of new property in tax revenue. So what we're doing there is we're looking at our 2024 tax rate as a district, which was 3.1835. And I'm multiplying that tax rate towards new property growth. So they are separate things. I'm doing that to estimate the number of dollars that would come in for our new property tax growth there. Because that's our most recent tax rate. That's as close as you can get to estimate what the taxes would be on property. So that percentage is totally unrelated to the bottom test, which is a truth in taxation test, just comparing your year-to-year change.
Thank you.
Very good. All right. so we'll put this on.
Yes, so later this evening, there is an action request for the board to approve the levy being placed on display, which will enable us to move towards December, where we'll bring, again, we'll have a truth and taxation hearing at the beginning of the board meeting, and then we'll ask for an action to approve the levy at that meeting.
All right, thank you.
It's important to know, when we're talking about some of the flat funding stuff, that's out there. We talked about the special ed transportation, special ed placement, what have you, is that if those numbers that are sitting at flat rate aren't going up, there's still obligations of this district. And there are financial obligations the district has to cover. And that's when you look at the levy, where do those funds come from? They come from what this district levies and what this district collects. So there's reasons that we have to increase this levy every year, because when our funding doesn't go up, we have requirements that we have to meet. That money's got to come from somewhere to cover those gaps.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Then we have one more item, we have a transportation item, Eric and Jeff.
Great for talking.
You want to kick us off here?
I'll kick us off. Do micro-facilitation. So transportation, we're going to have several action items coming up, and I want to kind of set the stage. This is as much for the community as it is for the board, or what is out there. There's a very thorough, multiple very thorough board reports that I would encourage everyone to look at. But in a nutshell, to know how we got here. We are in year 2 with SAFE, with busing. Year 1 was not good. I repeatedly said it was not good. Eric felt it was not good. You as the board had heard it was not good. And we were in frequent conversation with Safeway that they need to do better, they need to improve. In the summer, we had concerns about on-time buses, communication from Safeway to our schools and our families. But a third one came up, that was Safeway's finances, that we had concerns with this one. The start of the school year with Safeway was better than expected for some routes, not all, but some routes. But in the background, Eric and I, mainly Eric, had been exploring other options should A, Safeway financially not make it, or B, Safeway not be able to hit that bar of greatness that we have in District 41, and we would need to find another provider. The issue with this, as Eric knows all too well, is there aren't bus stores out there that you just go and get buses. In fact, people don't just switch buses mid-year. It is a very big deal. And when we went out to bid last year, we had very few bids bidding for our services. It's complicated, but nevertheless, Eric was working behind the scenes and exploring what various options were, and did a lot of work in the months as we watched how Safeway was performing this year, which, while better than last, still wasn't good enough. And I think you, Shannon, heard repeatedly from our families that they weren't there yet. Let's fast forward to October. In October, we heard from Safeway that financially our concerns were justified. And as Eric was holding their feet to the fire with, hey, we need financials, they realized that they could no longer service us under the current contract, paying the rate that we had been paying. So we had options, and options were paying me a lot more money to stay with a bus company that was not meeting our needs. But we thought that we had better options, and we have explored a few other providers. The recommendation we're going to bring to you tonight is First Student. This is the company we've had before for years. And Eric and I, mainly Eric, had been working with First Student folks on what if we needed to make a change mid-year, which is kind of unprecedented. That just doesn't happen. You don't just switch bus companies mid-year. But if we had to do it, what would that take? And First Student, while there were no guarantees that we were going to go to them, we're working behind the scenes to see, here's what we can do with buses, here's what we can do for drivers, here's what we could do for a depot in the event that we were going to move that way. And come October, that really heated up in terms of, hey, we might really want to recommend this. So we were looking at other providers, but we feel that tonight First Student is the right option for us for a couple of reasons. Number one, they have a strong capacity to deliver. We have talked to other districts around us who have used First Student, and they've been terrific. The first student representatives we've been working with have been highly collaborative in hearing what our needs are and really working to get a good partnership with us. They had prior experience with us. It wasn't perfect. We know that it wasn't perfect. I have confidence, I don't want to speak for you, Eric, I think you do too, though. We have confidence that we will be able to work with them in a way that just didn't work this year. We tried, we didn't get the results that we needed. And thirdly, they also have an existing depot that's going to support the transition. Should you approve the action to both terminate the agreement with Safeway and create a new agreement, sign off on a new agreement with First Student. I'm going to come up for air. You want to fill in some of the blanks and then talk about where we could go from there?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I'll pause just, are there any questions that jump out right now before I kind of complete the story? Okay, I don't see any. So everything Dr. McHugh said is spot on. We've been looking at a plan B, knowing full well that there was a high probability that the financial situation of Safeway was going to be such that they might not be able to serve us. We were faced with the idea of, do we limp through the year and hope that Safeway survives, or do we work on a plan B that we might have to bring to the board for action, and that's what we're doing tonight. After the call from Safeway in October, which basically it occurred because of my repeated attempts for a financial summary from them. Part of our contract with Safeway permits us to ask for that. It gives them 48 hours to respond to us, and they didn't meet that window, and they wouldn't give me any information. So after repeated attempts, they pretty much told us that because of their operating costs and the way that they did our contract, they needed to either ask for an increase in fees from our district or separate service with us. Given that we've been talking in the background about a plan B all through this process, we were prepared to basically sever our relationship with Safeway and move to a new provider. So I'm going to talk just briefly about what that would look like. So in working with First Student, who was one of several providers I did contact and basically asked them, are you interested? Can you scale up and serve us? First Student emerged as the most capable and really can meet our needs the best, in my opinion. What it would look like is we would present, which is on the agenda tonight, an action request from the board to terminate services with Safeway effective December 19th. That date is important because that's the last day before winter break. That will enable Safeway to finish out the remaining month of this calendar year, and then make a clean break effective right after winter break. January 5th is the day that our kids come back, and that's when First Student would start serving the district. Because of the fact that this is a very atypical, unusual switch, what we plan to do is have First Student run our existing routes. We're not going to have them reroute everybody. We're not going to have any changes go into place. We're going to ask First Student to just start running the routes that we're currently running today, and then we'll make adjustments from there as needed. An important aspect of this change is Glenbard High School District 87 is also going through this. They've had a few conversations at their board meetings. They will also be making a change. They've not taken action, so they don't know exactly what that change will look like. But what I do know for District 41 is we're no longer going to be partnered with District 87. Currently, we're in a partnership that enables us to tier routes. And when I say tier routes, that means a high school bus runs first, that same bus and that same driver then turn around and go pick up D41 kids and run a D41 route. So when we make this change to First Student, we will be entirely untiered. We're no longer going to be running high school routes and waiting for that bus to get to our routes to get to school. For that reason, the routes, while they might not change, I do expect the times to probably change. As many families and parents know, we have a lot of late bus issues in the morning still. And when I say a lot, it's 3 or 4, and that's way too many in my opinion. So with this change, I'm expecting that those routes might start a little earlier, just so those kids get to school on time. So that is one thing I do expect to happen in January, which I think is a great thing. Definitely want to jump back in.
You want to talk about costs?
Yes. With this change, as you can imagine, we're no longer going to benefit from the tiering of the high school. By tiering of the high school, obviously you're using one bus and one driver to run 2 routes. We're not going to have that benefit anymore, so we're not going to have that shared financial experience that we do have currently with District 87 right now. So this change will, involve an increase in our transportation costs. Again, I would refer you to the board reports that are in the agenda tonight. They are very detailed. For the rest of this school year, with the first student transition starting January 5th, I estimate it to be about a $1.2 million increase for our district. That's just straight general ed and special education and transportation route costs. That's an approximate number. An important note I would add to that is it is going to change our state transportation reimbursement dollars as well. So while our spend on this level will increase, there will be a trailing reimbursement from the state that's also going to increase because the way the state reimburses transportation is a percentage of your total expenditures. So while our costs go up, our reimbursement dollars will go up. Obviously, it will not offset the entire increased cost, but it's important to consider because those are not insignificant dollars.
Just a question, and there's more clarification. So, in looking at Safeway, their performance issues, from just their performance deliverables, were issues. So when you look at the financial, it wasn't just they couldn't continue to provide the deliverables for the contract without a large increase, to the price. It was also that even at that price, there was a risk that they still wouldn't be able to provide transportation services going forward.
I would put it this way, we are not the only district, inclusive of District 87, that is going to be impacted by this. I think unfortunately, and this is just my opinion, that Safeway entered into a number of contracts with many school districts last year, same time we entered into a 5-year deal, and I think those were all, in my opinion, bid too low. That we find ourselves in this position because the bid that we accepted, while it looked great financially for us, it simply isn't enough dollars for Safeway to cover their operating expenses and their debt obligations. So with that in mind, there's been a concern of mine all along that what if a few different school districts decide that, we're going to jump ship because of service or for whatever reason. Now you have an entity that's struggling to cover their costs, losing paying customers. We didn't want to be stuck as one of the last people still with Safeway when I know, at least in my opinion, there are not that many providers in the market that could service our district. So we wanted to be ready to make that change.
And Safeway is taking steps to actively drop districts. So
yeah.
They're stopping providing, they're under contract with other districts, and they've said, we are stopping providing transportation services. Good luck.
Yeah, what they communicated to us is that they needed to basically either change existing contracts with clients or exit those contracts because they simply are not getting the profit needed to service their debt. Safeway offered that to us, and you'll see in the conversation we'll have later tonight about the termination agreement with Safeway, there is going to be a portion, a period of time in December where we're going to need to agree to pay a little more so that we don't have an interruption in student transportation because it simply was not possible to get another provider in this situation for student up and running December 1st. So we're going to need Safeway to operate in December, and they told us that a lot of their struggles are driven by their lender. They've borrowed a lot of money to purchase buses, and they can't make those debt payments. So their lender is requiring them to either modify these contracts or sell their assets. So in our situation, we need buses to transport kids to school in December, so we're going to need to agree to a higher rate during December to keep them online.
Yeah, I guess the main point is that Safeway's lender, they say, do this or sell your assets. Safeway sells their assets. District 41 up the creek.
They wouldn't have buses to drive kids in.
You guys have been working behind the scenes to make sure that not only do we have paddles, that we're not on the creek. But I think it's important, right? This isn't just looking for new transportation provider, because of service. This is looking for new transportation provider because this transportation provider might not be.
Well, since David Jeff, Jay brought up a good point when he asked the question, maybe this is a good time to turn to the board and see if they have other questions. We certainly submitted a fair number of them, but this would be a good time maybe to revisit some of those, because I think it just provided a lot of information, so. Yeah, Katie, please. You have to turn it on.
I mean, first, I would echo exactly what Jason just said. I mean, seeing a little bit what goes on behind the scenes and the time that you put into this, it's, I mean, as a parent, thank you. Like, I can't imagine where we'd be sitting right now if we're not gonna have buses. So thank you, that's amazing. I said this when we were discussing an email, but I am trying really hard to keep, like, in the balcony and the dance floor, because you guys are doing amazing, but a mid-year bus transition as a parent makes me a little bit nervous, because winter will be on January 5th. Everybody will be coming off holiday break. It was really reassuring to hear the routes are staying the same, but in terms of, you know, drivers practicing the routes, like, I don't expect them to be doing that on New Year's Eve, or any, if there are time changes, when will parents see those skyward? Will that come later? I mean, what just kind of reassurances do we have that we're going to be ready to go on January 5th?
It's a great question. I know in our conversations with first student, which I'm just going to take a moment, we do have 2 first student individuals in the back that have been, you know, integral in this conversation. So that's Peter and Rich. They've been with us since August, as we kind of talked about Plan B. But to your question, the plan is to run some routes before January 5th. You know, they've been working behind the scenes to get their the bus depot staff lined up. You know, you're going to need individuals to come in and run this in very short notice. One of the strengths of First Student is they're a national organization and they're familiar with how to do that. It does kind of set them apart for their ability to service our district. And that's where some of our comfort comes, knowing that they have served our district. They were 7 years in this district before the Safeway came in last year. They still operate the depot just about a half mile north of here and serve a lot of our neighbors. So they know the area. They've committed to, you know, staffing appropriately, getting management staff on site to run the depot, and knowing that, you know, they've already got the routes. We've already started talking about student feed information. As soon as that's appropriate, we'll share that information. And then as far to your question, I absolutely expect to be sending communications out probably over the latter part of winter break to let parents know and get into Skyward Family Access. Look and see, double check your times, because if we do make some changes, you know, I don't anticipate them happening before January 5th, but it only takes a minute to check and it can make a big difference. Because we're going to be doing that as soon as we can, just to make sure, like I said earlier, there are still buses getting heavily late. That's got to stop. So we're going to fix that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, others? Other board members, any other questions?
So it looks like inside, I guess it can go to the first student contract. Because we're looking at, the contract that we're looking at is that you've taken, we included options for this year. We have Safeway for stuff. We had first student coming in for Safeway to make sure we have transportation services provided to our students for the remainder of this school year. So you have options that will stay in that contract. So we are not here now. There is availability in the contract if that option becomes available. That there's the ability to tier up and save them forward if that's available.
Yeah, that's a good point. And we'll talk a little bit about this later, but part of our agreement that we're going to propose with First Student enables us to make those changes that, you know, will basically improve our efficiency. And there's the option that if we do find a partner, maybe it's District 87, maybe it's one of our other neighbors that utilizes First Student. If there's the opportunity to tier with those districts, we have the ability to look into that.
This was really well-rounded. Like, as much as it's an immediate need, it's thinking long-term of how to address the need.
Yes, anyone else? Any other questions? Was there any final thoughts when here before we close the, please?
So I just want to give my thanks to Jeff and his team here for staying on top of all of this. You've given us updates over the last few months, and it seems like sometimes the story changes hourly based on the situation in flux. And even as recently as last Tuesday, I was at the president's meeting, and Jeff says, well, what do you think? And I said, I think I'm really grateful that you get a handle on all this. It's really hard to keep track of all stuff. Besides, you could talk about behind the scenes, but there was a lot of work. There's a lot of work to get this.
Well, thank you for saying that. That's that gentleman over there. And his team, Shannon, has been incredible in handling all of this. Eric has been out in Wisconsin. What are you going to do with the guy?
Maybe go start doing my day job again, I don't know.
But I think it comes down to, for me, this is going to cost more money. And we know that. And that'll be coming into forecasting and where we go. We knew that. It's the balance of what do our families and kids need? And they weren't getting it. Chloe, you ride the bus, right? Yeah. Joseph, you ride the bus? Yeah. But Chloe, you're the reason we're all here. And when we have buses that aren't picking it up on time, missing stops altogether, not communicating when they're late, that's not great to see. And we need to get a bus company that's going to give that to you. And I believe that First Street is going to do it. So yes, we know it's more, but we have all the confidence that this agreement is going to give this community the busing that they deserve, and that is a great service. It won't be great January. It can't be. Maybe, but I would not put that on them in terms of it's not going to be perfect from the jump. Anytime you start a year for busing, it's tricky, let alone right in the middle of the year individual. So there's going to be a grace period. When I say great, is we're going to get there eventually, but we also know it's not going to be great right off the bat. But the way you have been working with Eric and with myself, it's a matter of where there's a problem, we solve it. It's collaborative, it's a partnership. That was missing with Safeway. We weren't collaboratively solving problems together. It's seeing that, and I think just from how the two of you have been over the last few months, that's a sign of what things will be to come. So it's going to be great.
But it's not great on Jeff, at least pretty damn good.
It's in the contract, I think I saw that.
Yeah.
Jeff will talk after this. All right, well, thank you all. Good discussion. I appreciate the board doing this first meeting. All the material, and nice job, Eric, and Jeff, and the rest, and getting all that information in the report. Well done. All right, I just want to note that originally we thought we might have a closed session right at this point on the agenda, but we do not need to do that. We have a closed session at the end of the meeting. So we're going to jump into the action items, and this is where we have our consent agenda. Are there any items board members would like to remove the consent agenda to be considered separately? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes employment recommendations and resignations as noted on the personnel report, disposal of surplus property, donation of gifts, of information act report, investment schedule, monthly revenue expenditure summary report, school district payment order, summary of bills and payroll, treasurer's report, and the October 2025 regular meeting minutes, November 3rd, committee of the whole minutes, and the closed session minutes of the November 3rd meeting. I need a motion.
Motion. Ted handed me the mic to make a motion, but he didn't me, so I'll second.
I think Kate saw you about to do it, just jump in there. All right.
Testing myself.
Yeah, that's my signature in here.
That worked. Mrs. Bowman.
Ms. Becker?
Yes.
Mrs. Liddell?
Yes.
Mr. Estes?
Yes.
Dr. Martelli?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Lobach?
Yes.
Dr. Bruno?
Yes. All right, we have a number of recommendations, and these there are two of you. The first one out is the annual Chromebook purchase. May I have a motion to approve the purchase of 780 Dell Chromebooks, of Chromebook 11, 3120, 2-in-1, Chrome management license, and cases for a total cost of $322,358.40. to be funded from the 25-26 technology budget as outlined in the board report.
Motion.
Second. Any further discussion? Mrs. Moak, roll call please.
Mrs. Liddell?
Yes.
Mr. Estes?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Dr. Martelli?
Yes.
Ms. Becker?
Yes.
Mr. Lobach?
Yes.
Dr. Bruno?
Yes. That motion passes. Thank you. Second item is approval to place the levy on display. It's riveting to hear it. One more time, Aaron. What do you say? No?
It's riveting.
It's riveting. All right. You do a great job. May I have a motion to approve the 2025 preliminary levy and place it on display on November 18th, 2025, and to set December 15th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. as the truth in taxation public hearing, and publish notice of said hearing in the Glen Ellen Suburban Life newspaper.
Motion.
Need a second?
Second.
There's a second. Any further discussion?
Just real quick, we talked about the flat rating, but also like you look at this transportation, like this levy, like where we start from is like, this is what serves as our financial base. And when you look at what, you know, what our administration does, it puts us in a position to be able to flex when our students need it. This is where it starts from. And I think it's important to recognize this is our base, right? This is our base. And it gives us, you know, it gives us the ability to properly serve our students and jump when our students need us.
Amen. Well said. Well said, Jason. Roll call, Mrs. Lowe.
Mr. Estes?
Yes.
Dr. Martelli?
Yes.
Ms. Becker?
Yes.
Ms. Liddell?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Lobach?
Yes.
Dr. Bruno?
Yes, and this motion passes also. And then the resolution to regulate expense reimbursements. We have a motion to approve the resolution to regulate expense reimbursements pursuant to section 2:125 of the board policy as presented.
Motion.
Second. Any discussion? No discussion. All right, then roll call, Mrs. Poe.
Dr. Martelli?
Yes.
Ms. Becker?
Yes.
Mr. Estes?
Yes.
Ms. Liddell?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Lobach?
Yes.
Dr. Bruno?
Yes, and that motion passes also. And folks, just bear with me before we get to the next two remaining items, that deal with the contract with Safeway and then the services for student. I do have a prepared statement that I'd like to read. The administration is recommending board approval of two agreements relating to student transportation services to respond to three following things. First, the sufficient level of service by the district's current provider, Safeway. Second, Safeway's representation to the district that it could not sustain service to the district under its current contract. And third, Safeway's failure to demonstrate sufficient facilities and financial resources to fulfill its current contractual commitments after the upcoming winter holiday break. Renewed issues with Safeway were communicated to the board and the community about when school resumed in August of this year and again in October. Over the last few months, significant efforts have been made to assure long-term service and satisfactory levels of service at Safeway, but without success. The point has now been reached that the imminent risk of sudden and complete loss, or at a minimum substantially reduced and interrupted service for the approximate 1,800 of our students transported to and from school and school activities daily necessitates ending the district's contract with Safeway and contracting with First Student on an emergency basis. So, first motion recommended for adoption by the board approves an agreement with Safeway to terminate service and the general education and special education transportation contracts with Safeway at the close of the day on December 19th when winter break starts. The agreement avoids a protracted unilateral contract termination process and minimizes the risk of service loss or interruption by Safeway over the next month and permits contracting with First Student community service when students return to school from winter break on January 5th. The second motion, recommended for adoption by the board, approves a 5-year agreement with First Student with an option for the district to terminate after 2.5 years. First Student was willing to ramp up the provision of service to the district mid-school year, and so quickly, only with a contractual length similar to what First Student has with area school districts. The contract has been negotiated with prices competitive with those paid by area school districts, but is being awarded on an emergency basis without formal competitive bidding. This is permitted by the Illinois School Code as long as the contract receives at least 6 yes votes from school board. The competitive bidding process is a long and complicated process. If followed under the present circumstances, the bidding process presents risk of a lengthy interruption of transportation services to our students. Additionally, the loss of state aid and a significant extension of school into the summer, likely combined with remote learning. These are risks that can be avoided entirely or at least substantially reduced by contracting with First Student now on an emergency basis. Thank you. All right. Now, we will get to the two recommendations. First, then, is termination of contract with Safeway Transportation. May I have a motion to approve the agreement between the board and Safeway Transportation Services Corporation entitled Agreement Terminating Safeway Transportation Service Contracts, substantially in the form presented by the superintendent, and to authorize the president or president and secretary to sign the agreement provided it is signed first by a Safeway officer. Yes? Okay. So I need a motion.
Motion.
And now I need a second. Second. Any further discussion? Okay, very good. Mrs. Vogt, roll call.
Dr. Martelli?
Yes.
Ms. Becker?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Estes?
Yes.
Mrs. Liddell?
Yes.
Mr. Lobach?
Yes.
Dr. Bruno?
Yes. Motion passes. And then the second recommendation, approval of transportation services agreement with First Student on an emergency no bid basis. May I have a motion to approve on an emergency no bid basis as summarized by superintendent, and also my statement, an agreement between the board and First Student entitled Transportation Services Agreement, substantially in the form presented by the superintendent, and to authorize the president and secretary to sign the agreement promptly after signature by a duly authorized representative of First Student, and so long as the agreement terminating Safeway Transportation Services contract is in place.
Motion.
Yes. Second. Any additional discussion? Please, Amy.
I just wanted to say throughout this, my main and foremost concern has been for the students to be able to get to and from school safely. And I think that this move will allow us to do that. And I know that it's going to be more expensive than what we were previously paying. But I think that that is worth doing if our students are getting to and from school safely and on time. But most important, safely.
Duly. Thank you. All right.
I
Then.
think it's important to note.
No, wait. Use my.
I think it's important to note that while it is more expensive, it is not out of line with bids we've done in the past. I mean, we've gotten some really high bids in the past. This is not out of line with it. So,
Thank you. Okay? Yeah. All right, Mrs. Vogt, roll call.
Mr. Estes?
Yes.
Mrs. Liddell?
Yes.
Ms. Becker?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Dr. Martelli?
Yes.
Mr. Lobach?
yes.
Dr. Bruno?
Yes. Motion passes. Very good. All right, we will go on then to the board governance, working together, and first up is the Illinois Association of School Board Resolution Report and our representative to our delegate,
Wait, Mike.
Julie Hill.
Oh, you want to talk about busing for?
It is actually.
The resolution is about busing,
It's
I'm not
about
even kidding, I'm sorry, it's real. So, school funding, colon, busing, bus safety. So this one's to establish a dedicated school bus safety equipment grant with the State Board of Education provide financial assistance subject to for the cost of factory installed 3-point seatbelts on new or leased school buses on or before a date in 23. Creates a small district waiver that extends the compliance deadline to 2034. Authorizes qualifying districts to use transportation bond proceeds for revolving lease agreements with a local cost share without counting against the district's statutory limit. I was trying to summarize that in my head, and I just didn't read all the words. Directs the Department of Transportation to approve alternative research-based occupant protection technologies that may offer equal or greater safety at lower cost, giving districts flexibility to comply. So I had a couple questions if you guys read my quick summary here. Overall, I support more funding for public schools. Always, you've heard me say that for like 7 years or whatever I've been here, 6 something. So I did have a couple questions/concerns. I also asked Dr. McHugh and talked to his cabinet, and they are very supportive of this resolution. And given their deep understanding of school transportation costs and funding, I suggest that we follow their recommendation and vote to approve it. But I am open to comments, questions. But I can't actually answer any questions, but we can try.
There's only one resolution up here?
There's one resolution.
I looked at your letter, I was like, what?
You're like, should we just took it out?
Am I missing something?
Yeah, no, this is it. So that's all I got. Easy
So,
this year.
yeah, it's a quick meeting.
No, probably not, but
Yeah.
you might get one.
And so if the board's in agreement with Julie's recommendation, and it sounds like we are, then we, and Julie will be directed to vote yes on the resolution at the
Great, thank you guys. That was easy.
There's one other item that I just wanted to mention as a kind of prompt, both to all of us, to our learning community, certainly to our parents. The board has taken up a book study, What Schools Can Be. And every board member now has a copy. Hopefully some people in the community are reading it. It is very provocative, and it is a read.
I can verify it is.
It's not Eric Porter or Gordon Levy, really, but that's a high bar. That's a high bar. And we'll be holding a February committee of the whole meeting. Dr. McHugh will facilitate. Hopefully, with a good crowd from the community to think creatively and look into the future about what school could be. And I just as a little prompt, wanted to just make note of right in the prologue. Man, I found myself, I don't know what they did too, but they definitely preview some common principles, and they generate a new acronym in which they claim from this research and this work going across the country, talking to teachers and educators. And Dr. Matteli has talked about this in a larger network that's connected to what school could be. And they talk about first purpose, students, so in what environments do kids excel, where students attack challenges, they know to be important, it makes the world better. They call that purpose. And under essentials, students acquire the skill sets and mindsets needed in an increasingly innovative world. Agency, students own their learning, becoming self-directed, intrinsically motivated adults. Knowledge, what students learn is deep and retained, enabling them to create, to make, to teach others. They also point out other things they've learned that they feel are going to be somewhat, if not shocking, they're going to make the reader uncomfortable. Like, the purpose of U.S. education is to rank human potential, not to develop it. You got me, just on that one. That the idea of college ready, and that's connected to every state assessment we make our kids take, actually impedes learning and innovation in K-12 schools. We may find ourselves debating these points as we go through them. All students would benefit from considerably more hands-on learning. We're trying to close the wrong achievement gap. We can make education better and more equitable by challenging students with real-world problems. K-12 schools done right will produce graduates better prepared for life than most current college grads. I take no offense to that being a college educator. And then finally, educators can transform schools at scale with change models that establish conditions rather than mandate daily practice. And that's just 2 pages of code. So hopefully we will get into that and kind of really be engaged by that conversation. Yeah?
I have a couple of things to add.
Oh, look at you, Tim.
Yeah, because you threw me off when you said, maybe we want to have some comments.
I thought maybe-
And I'm like, did I get the book? I didn't remember getting the book, and I turned out I didn't. But I did listen to a podcast with the author, and I wrote down this quote that I thought was interesting. He's talking about what's the next thing, right? What's really preparing our students. In fact, I found parallels with a talk I went to 6 years ago, I think, with that, from the International Center for Leadership and Education. He did a similar thing where he surveyed schools of what were common factors in successful schools. And his thesis was when you're making changes, it's not incremental, right? You actually move forward, don't just say, oh, we're going to do it better. Let's move forward. But one thing that stuck out for me in this interview going back with Ed Peterson, especially since we've been talking about AI, this is a quote from him. It says, "In most places I visit, unfortunately, you may get on the honor roll. Well, the way you get on the honor roll is by being able to memorize content, replicate low-level procedures, write formulaically, and follow instructions. If you can do these 4 things, you will in most schools be on the honor roll student. And those are the exact 4 things that machine intelligence excels at. So if we're teaching our kids to be machines, they're going to lose.
Really take us into the conversation. We got a whole lot. That's well, we can't say too much, right? Should we say that? You want to say?
I said more importantly, Ted's point is the machine will be replacing our students. Not that we're making our children machines, but there will soon be machines replacing what students
right.
do.
Well, that's why I said they would be losing, because they'd be losing the machine.
And the author, and Ted mentioned the author, Ted talking about that. Ted Dintersmith is the author. I really would recommend the book. It's very accessible.
And now I can waste just a little more time.
Oh, yeah.
I forgot 2 things.
Oh, jeez.
Bob and I attended the finance committee meeting, right, where Eric gave us a really good in-depth coverage of not only the levy procedure, which I've now seen 7 times. I paid very close attention to the time before I got on board. But I enjoyed that. I wouldn't say it was weird. It's fair. But also, we did some initial discussions in terms of like projections of things for bringing forward later in the school year. Very timely and good to be planning for. And then the other thing was I forgot to thank the PTAs for their very generous donations. Prove that as part of the consent agenda. I normally break protocol and thank them when we vote on it, even though I'm not supposed to discuss it. I forgot to say that. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ted. All right, very good. Upcoming meetings. Monday, December the 15th. This is where we have the public hearing, study, and then the regular board education meeting, and we're back at Hadley. And then for the new year, our regular board meeting is on January 26th at 6:30, again at Hadley. Okay? All right then. We are going to adjourn the closed session. May I have a motion to adjourn the closed session to confidentially discuss section 2C5, the purchase or lease of real property for the use of the school board, including meetings held for the purpose of discussing whether a particular parcel should be acquired.
Motion. Second.
If there's any discussion, roll call, Mrs. Muller.
Ms. Becker?
Yes.
Mrs. Liddell?
Yes.
Mr. Estes?
Yes.
Dr. Martelli?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Lobach?
Yes.
Dr. Bruno?
Yes, the board will not be taking any action in the back into the session, so thank you all. Good night.
I'm not sure.